Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Tessa Adamson, and I am Media Relations Director at Revolve. And it is a pleasure to moderate today's press briefing, Tech Meets the Tide, Empowering Communities to Face Urban Flooding. For those of you who may not be familiar with Revolve, we are a media group founded in 2010. We produce campaigns for sustainability initiatives, publish a quarterly magazine, and provide support to more than 30 EU-funded projects. Our mission is simple: to amplify solutions that drive environmental and social resilience, and to empower journalists and communicators to bring these stories to the public. Our work connects innovation, policy, and storytelling, and that is exactly what we hope to do with this press briefing for you today. Flooding has become one of the fastest growing and most expensive climate challenges worldwide. In 2025 alone, extreme floods across Europe have displaced thousands of people, caused over 20 billion euros in damages, and devastated vulnerable communities by destroying homes, livelihoods, and essential services. In 2024, nearly 1/3 of Europe's river systems were affected by floods, resulting in hundreds of casualties and billions in economic losses. These are no longer distant or isolated events. They are reshaping how societies live, plan, and build. The science is clear. Heavier rainfall, rising seas, and aging infrastructure will make floods more frequent and more destructive, especially in densely populated urban areas where infrastructure can no longer keep pace with our changing climate. The 2025 UN Ocean Conference in Nice emphasized that healthy ecosystems, both marine and urban, are essential for resilience, calling for integrated approaches that link ocean, water, and climate policies. As this week's European Week of Regions and Cities kicks off and covers topics like digital innovation, circular economy, and green infrastructure for flood-resilient cities, momentum is building towards COP30 in Brazil, where adaptation, urban resilience, and sustainable financing will take center stage, marking a shift from reactive recovery to proactive, integrated climate action. And technology has become an essential part of the solution, from artificial intelligence-powered early warning systems to real-time monitoring tools, and from flood-resilient architecture to nature-based urban design. Yet, a critical gap remains: connecting technological innovation with community engagement. Resilience is not built by data alone, ladies and gentlemen. It requires trust, participation, and local ownership. Over the next hour, we will explore 4 interlinked topics: technology and early warning systems, flood-resilient infrastructure, social and community resilience, and nature-based and financial solutions. We are joined here today by a distinguished panel of experts and practitioners. We have Christian Billund Dehlbæk, who is National Coordinator at VIA University College, who leads Danish partners in the EU Horizon Resist project, developing and testing flood-resilient demo houses that turn climate adaptation research into practical, data-driven solutions for communities in flood-prone areas. Christian, hello, it is a pleasure to have you here. Amalie Laursen from the University of Copenhagen is project leader for Regions for Climate, who will share how digital tools and participatory planning can make flood adaptation more inclusive and socially just. Amalie, welcome. Rafael Sánchez-Diezma is CEO of HYDS, who has pioneered early warning and decision support systems now used in Catalonia's emergency services and civil protection teams, bridging technology and real-time community action. Rafael, welcome. And finally, we have Jurík, who is Director of Infrastructure and Nature at the Global Infrastructure Basel Foundation. He will explore how nature-based solutions can be embedded in infrastructure planning to align public and private investments with ecological resilience. He has a prior commitment this morning, but he will be joining us in about 20 minutes or so. Each speaker will begin with a short presentation, followed by press-style discussion and discussions, questions, and answers, allowing space for exchanges in the usual briefing format. Before we begin, I want to thank you all, especially the journalists and the communicators who join us today. Your role in shaping public awareness and understanding of these issues is vital. We hope that this session will be an engaging one for you and thought-provoking conversation, offering you fresh insights, practical examples, and inspiration. Above all, we hope you leave today with key takeaways, story ideas, motivation to write about these issues, to bring more public attention to how technology, communities, and nature can come together to face the tide and to shape a more resilient future for all. We intend to provide you all with some follow-up media kits should you wish to have more information on the topics which will be discussed. And of course, please feel free to ask questions in the chat throughout the session. We will bring them into the discussion after the presentations. And participants, please take note that in the chat, there are the housekeeping rules as well. Thank you all again for being here. And with that, let us begin with our first speaker, Christian. Your work on the Resist demo houses brings adaptation into people's everyday lives. We would love to hear more. Over to you.
Thank you so much. And I will just share my screen. So bear with me one moment. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity here to present to you one of our case studies from the Resist project, our demo houses, which has the overall purpose of trying to increase flood resilience in flood-prone areas and test different principles, which I will tell you more about in the following. But before I deep dive into the presentation of the demo houses, I'd just like to give you a very overall presentation about our Resist project to give you a sense of the context that we are working into. So Resist is a climate change adaptation project financed by the EU Horizon program. We are almost halfway through the project period and are halfway through, as I said, yeah. So we have a budget, overall budget of approximately 27 million euros and are a huge collaboration of 58 partners distributed over 12 different regions. The project is very closely connected to the EU climate mission, and we are working with the different climate challenges that you see here in the figure on the right. We have the overall purpose of trying to work with innovation and development of climate adaptation solutions that will increase climate resilience to these challenges that I mentioned here on the figure. This slide here is just to introduce to you the Danish partnership, because actually all of these faces that you see here are the real masterminds behind all of the activities going on in the Central Denmark region. So all of the credit is really to these nice people. But in the Central Denmark region, we face different climate challenges, mostly related to too much water and actually also flooding. Flooding from different sources of the water cycle. And all of these challenges has been the cause and the main reason why we have been developing these activities that you see here. This is actually an overview of all of the projects that we work with in our region. And I will be focusing on the demo houses that has been established here in the west coast of our region. So the demo houses, they have an objective of testing 5 different principles. We want to build with a structural zoning. So this means that we have actually developed a house with a zone that goes 80 centimeters above the floor, where all of the materials, all of the installations and constructions has been built in a way where we intend to flood it and to see if this can withstand water intrusion. Principle 2 is about building climate robust and climate friendly. So we also want to build a house which actually, where we, through the construction phase, lower the carbon footprint. Is this possible? So this house has been built from materials with a very low carbon footprint and from biogenic materials, where we want to test if these materials are also able to withstand a flooding. Number 3, about building for adaptability, is about making a building smarter. So for example, our house here, which you can see, this is just a model. We have actually built this porch in a way where the floor can be tilted up. So during a flood, it will be able to protect the windows and the doors from any damages that might be caused by goods that are floating on the water. Number 4, about building for drainage, is about, so when the water retracts, we want to be able to drain the house. So is this possible? But we also want to test if the house during a flood is able to cope with the pressure from the water that surrounds the house during a flood. And finally, the 5th principle about accessible constructions is a concept where we want to, the width zone has been built in a way where we will be able to disentangle partly some of the house to be able to remove damaged and wet materials and replace it with new dry ones. So these 5 principles are the ones that we are going to test over the coming 2 years and be able to, in the long run, provide recommendations on how to build more climate resilient in the flood-prone areas. And in relation to this, we have also developed a coastal route which will connect the 2 houses, and the visitors visiting the houses and going along the coastal route will then be, we would like to increase their awareness, build up knowledge about living in flood-prone areas, providing them with knowledge and recommendations for adaptation solutions to increase their resilience as well. So for the last 2.5 years, we have been through a very comprehensive development phase because there is a lot of work lying up to the construction of the houses. First of all, getting the right dispensation, legal dispensations from any relevant legislation in this area. So we have been in constant dialogue with the local authorities, national authorities, about getting the right dispensations and then, of course, also to try and coordinate the location of the houses together with the local authorities. Because the city where we have established the houses is a very small coastal city. So we want, of course, also to take into consideration their environment, their plans, and so on. But also the materials that will be used, has been used for the houses, has been a huge process of finding the right materials with a low carbon footprint, with the right format, so actually it will be able to cope with flooding. And also to find a constructor which we can collaborate with and who are willing to try and build these new types of houses, because this is a totally new construction and we needed to find a constructor with the right mindset. And of course, since this is in a local society, we want to also coordinate with local authorities and stakeholders to make them feel involved and engaged in our project. And finally, we have been conducting interviews with citizens living in flood-prone areas to get inputs for our coastal route and getting inputs that can be further provided to the visitors on the coastal route. So right now, in the end of July, the houses were established. We have 2 identical houses that are placed in the city of Lemvig. One will be used for communication, where we want to communicate about the principles that we are testing, communicate about the Resist project, and communicate about flood risks. The other one will be used for testing, and you see this house actually on the 2 pictures here on the right. You can see it's very close to the sea, and actually already now we have experienced 2 floodings in the house. So we are very busy at the moment trying to dry it out, replace the broken elements with new ones, and trying to examine how this has been affected so far. But since this is an ongoing process, we unfortunately do not have any results yet. So this is actually something you have to follow and keep up with in the coming period. At the same time, we've had meetings and workshops with citizens. There's been a huge interest from the local stakeholders to the houses, where we have talked about living in flood-prone areas and trying to communicate to them how they can actually increase their own resilience. And also having a dialogue with them about living in flood-prone areas, which this house will actually also symbolize. There's also been a huge media interest from national medias, newspapers, professional magazines, and so on, where we want to, of course, also give them a lot of inputs, which can be shared with the public. So for the coming steps, we will keep researching and examining how the houses are affected by flooding. We hope to get a lot more flooding in the houses in the coming period. And we are also intending to make more stakeholder involvement with both professional researchers, politicians, local authorities, to get their inputs about these houses. And as I told earlier, we have also developed this coastal route. This is one of two complementary projects to the demo houses. And this coastal route, as I told, is about informing stakeholders about flooding, adaptation measures, and added values, mainly directed towards citizens and tourists who we anticipate will visit the houses and increase their awareness. But we have also developed an augmented reality visualization, where we will try and communicate how we are actually working with the five different principles in the houses. So when the visitors come to the houses, they will be able with a tablet or their own phone to go around in the house and see how it will actually look like during a flood, and also to see how the house looks like inside the walls, because of course they will not be able to disentangle the house themselves, but they will be able to film it with this app to try and get a sense of how it looks from the inside, and also to get a better sense of how it will be tested in the future. So with that, this is actually what we're going to conduct with the houses, and we look forward to share the results with you in the coming 2 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Christian. What is fascinating here is how these demo houses that you work on serve not only as prototypes, but also as communication tools and help citizens see resilience in action and what they can actually do. This is really interesting. Thank you. Of course, resilience isn't only about what we build, it's also about who is involved in shaping the future. That brings us to the social dimension of flood adaptation. Amalie, your work in the Regions for Climate project looks at how communities can visualize and co-create adaptation to flooding, not just experience it as some kind of policy handed down to them. We would love to hear more about the social and community aspect of this. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Tessa. I'll just share my screen as well. Let me see what is the easiest way. Do you see my slides right now?
Not yet.
Not yet. Let me see. Yeah, let's see here. Like this?
Yes.
Yes, perfect. All right. Yeah, thank you so much for this introduction, Tessa. That was very spot on. My presentation is called People and Place, looking into the social aspects of resilience. My name is Amalie, and I work at the University of Copenhagen as a project manager for the Danish contribution to the Regions for Climate project. I'll start by just giving a short frame for my presentation here. And similar to what you just mentioned, Tessa, when we talk about climate change and adaptation, we often think about physical protection like dikes, walls, or infrastructure. But resilience is just as much about people and about our ability as individuals to respond, adapt, and recover. All in all, resilience means being able to withstand disruption and then return to a stable state afterwards. But that doesn't only come from strong infrastructure, it also comes from a strong sense of preparedness, knowledge, and social cohesion. Social resilience can take many forms. It can be structured preparedness plans, it can be local awareness, or simply knowing to not place your favorite book on the floor if your house is flood prone. It's about learning to live with the water and not just against it. And so the question I will try to answer here is, how can we work with this in practice and how can we enhance it? But first, a look into the Regions for Climate project. Maybe important to mention here is that it's the sister project to Resist, so many of these things will be very similar to what Christian just went through. But all in all, the aim of the Regions for Climate project is to create socially just and resilient societies in response to climate change. The project is funded by the EU Horizon program, and we are 42 partners across 12 European regions. Here in Denmark, we focus on Køge Bay, which is the shoreline south of Copenhagen. It is one of the most at-risk areas in Denmark if we look at societal value and also critical infrastructure. The maps here show how water from several directions challenge this area. The orange map shows a 1,000-year event today, and the second map shows all the streams that at the same time meet the sea here in Køge Bay. And all of this makes it a great case to explore how people and place can adapt together. And I'll go into 2 examples of how we work with this in the Regions for Climate project. The first example is our work with augmented reality tools in flood risk areas. So VIA University College is a partner in this project as well, and here they have developed an app together with the local municipalities of Køge Bay that shows different examples of future flooding scenarios, but also coastal adaptation measures. We have 2 locations in this app. You can see the first one on the top picture here on the right, and the second location on the 2 bottom pictures. And the first location takes place in the Køge Bay Beach Park. This is a man-made, large-scale coastal protection system. But if you were to visit it, you might think of it more as like a nice nature park with some beautiful beaches. In this location, we are visualizing rising sea levels and also comparing it to previous flooding events that has happened in the past. At the same time, we are also communicating at this location in the app about this whole area as a coastal protection measurement. On the second location, we're looking into future protection solutions that might be implemented. So on the picture here in the middle, you can see sort of a line in the landscape, this orange-brownish line, and that visualizes where a future dike might be implemented. So this is a very strong way to create dialogue with the local citizens, dialogue but also debate. And this has been a wish from the municipalities to visualize these things because it can help their communication efforts as well. I'm not going to go into much more detail about the contents of the app, but I want to sort of highlight how we've tried to design for inclusion, or in other words, how this app how we've tried to make it the most accessible to as many people as possible. When you use augmented reality, it can be quite demanding for a normal phone to run. So we've used quite a simple method to make sure that more or less all smartphones can run this app and not just the newest iPhone on the market. We've included several languages and also the ability to get everything read out loud. And finally, we've done this whole process, as I said, in very close collaboration with the municipalities. And that's to ensure that we have that it's meaningful and that it will be implemented, because the municipalities are the authority working with climate adaptation plans in Denmark. So we must have them on board. So all in all, this tool makes the invisible visible, and it helps people engage and talk about future adaptation and what it might look like. The second example is what we refer to as future visioning workshops. It's been developed and tested by a PhD student and the Danish coastal authorities. And just to set the frame, when we talk about resilience, we do have a risk of leaving people out or create inequality in both a very direct manner, but also in more indirect ways. Directly would be if we did adaptation that sort of pushes all the water towards a specific neighborhood, creating more vulnerable groups there. The other more indirect way is if we don't make sure to involve as many people as possible, but also a diverse group of people in adaptation planning. In other words, to get all voices out into the open. So in this example, we've tested ways to engage with groups that the municipalities traditionally find quite hard to engage with. They find it hard to get in contact with them, and maybe they don't. Maybe the normal participatory methods are not enough. We got in contact with 2 groups of women with immigrant backgrounds through a housing association that they were all connected to. And we invited them to take part in a 2-day collaboration workshop. On the first day, as you can see here on the left, we went to the coast to sort of get a common understanding of this area we were about to discuss and engage with. These are all women who live in the local area, so they already know the context quite well. And then on the second day, we started to work creatively. Through collage, the women got the opportunity to express hopes and ideas for a future resilient coastline, and also a place where they would want to be and to take trips to. Using these creative methods, collage is just one example. It could be a variety of other approaches as well. We try to facilitate that other types of languages can be used and that we create a broad engagement. On the right side here, you can see the final posters that were made by the groups. And these collages are turned into concrete suggestions that we bring to the municipal planners in Jurík. So it's a direct way to the planning process. This is an example of how creative, visual, and inclusive methods can bring new voices into adaptation planning. I will end on a few reflections. Social resilience can be strengthened in many ways. In our case, digital tools and creative engagement processes have shown to be very successful. And this is due to the fact that visual tools help, as I said, make the invisible visible, and it's a really strong tool for dialogue. But it's very important to keep your stakeholders super close throughout the whole development process of an app like this, if you want to make sure that it's relevant and that it's actually implemented. Secondly, we must remember that underrepresentation can create vulnerability. And for a society to be resilient, we must all have the opportunity to enhance our awareness and resilience. Finally, we cannot expect that everyone are engaged using the same methods. Culture, language, time, and several other factors play into this, and we must broaden our toolbox of engagement methods to make sure that adaptation becomes both social, inclusive, and just. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amalie, for this really, really interesting presentation. It's compelling to think how digital tools like augmented reality and visual workshops can make abstract risks more visible and more tangible, especially for underrepresented groups. So this was very, very interesting indeed. Moving now from social resilience to technological precision, as it were, our next speaker, Rafael, is going to explore how early warning systems can turn information into immediate action. Rafael, over to you.
Thank you, Tess. Thank you for inviting us to be here in this presentation. I'm going to share my screen. I think is there. Can you okay.
Yes.
So what we are trying to show you is some let's say examples of what we are doing in our company. to provide solutions for different levels, let's say, for this problem that is currently very, very common. That is the flooding, but also other kind of hazards that can affect or are affecting many of locals and regional places due to the climate change. So we basically in our company, what we are building is what we call a multi-hazard impact-based early warning systems. So these systems try to cope with these hazards at different levels. Can be national, regional, can be a city, even can be a very small site, as can be a camping, for example, or an industry that is located in a flood-prone area. So at the end, we are combining different kinds of data and systems and interfaces that help the potential user that can have different interests at these different levels to advance and be more proactive when something is happening. So I will try to summarize the pillars of these systems. So basically, all these systems that we are trying to build and are in reality offering to some customers are based in these 4 ideas. We are collecting data. We have models, specific models that are dealing with a specific hazards. Then we cross this information with vulnerability so that we can derive impact. And at the end, we are able to provide to the customer which are the actions that they have to do to protect. Can be assets, can be people, can be critical points, let's say. So this is the simple view of the different pillars, and this is the complex view of the different pillars, because at the end, inside of these boxes, we have many different things. For example, in this part of data, we collect any data that can help us to or can provide information about the current situation or the future situation. Can be meteorological sensors, can be hydrological sensors, weather radar, numerical weather prediction models. I mean, can be very sophisticated data that we think that at the end can help us to advance some problems. From there, and some of this data is not just for forecasted data, can be what things that are happening right now, as can be 112 calls, can be traffic information, can be cameras, for example. So it's something that's happening right now. I can help us to see the impact of, for example, flooding. Then we have models. This part is very important, and it's linked to what is done in the research field. So we can have models for many different hazards. Can be flooding, can be snow, can be fire, can be drought. So at the end, we are putting into the system, in many cases, several or one model for each of the hazards. So with the data and the models, we are able to assess or anticipate problems as can be flooded areas. This image is showing, for example, flooded areas for a certain return period. And we can combine this information with our critical points and activate these critical points and tell the customer or the user that he has to take a certain protection plan. So these are the 4, let's say, things that are combined, or pillars or blocks of things that we combine in our systems, okay? So just to show a very simple example of this concept working for example, in a local approach. This is the approach that we are, let's say, using for our product called Argo City, which is this approach applied to a a general city, let's say. So we have this idea of the data that is in our system. We have this idea of local sensors, which is very important because at the end we are building a solution for a very localized area. We combine with, let's say, this information and cook our products and warnings, and we try to provide hyperlocal warnings. And this concept is very important. We are not going to tell you that the whole city is going to have problems. We can do that, but also to tell you that certain elements of your city, can be a hospital, can be school, can be a factory, is going to be affected specifically by this flooding, let's say. So at the end, we these problems and we can activate the auto protection plans. And to look at this concept into a map, it would be something like this. This is the city of Barcelona, and I just put the interface of our tool, and you can see these critical points. So the first step is to set up the system, the critical points, and link these critical points with these more or less complex models that are going to help, models and data that are going to be combined to tell you that a specific critical element is going to be in a certain warning level situation right now or maybe in the future. No? The next step is when we combine this information, we can tell you that certain element can be a school, can be an industry, can be an hospital, can be affected, for example, for intense rainfall in the next, let's say, 45 minutes. And you have to take some protocols. And the next step is to link the tool with the protocols so that you can activate the protocols and in advance react to the flooding situation, for example. This is more or less some captures of the tools that we are providing to our users, where they can have, for example, some dashboards that in advance are telling them what is the situation for the different critical points. That they can select even specific maps or evolution of the meteorological information. So at the end, they are combining these the information that they have in the platform, so in a way that they can recognize, for example, specific sensors that are located in the region. And once the situation is triggered, for example, this is a critical point that has been triggered in orange, they know more or less the actions that they have to do to protect this point. And of course, these kind of tools can be used from a desktop or from a mobile, because this is very common that most of the people is not really working in front of a computer. The last part is how we deal with the idea that in many cases we are working with these models in the research field, and how we can connect this complexity, because we all know that research field is complex and it's sometimes disconnected with the let's say the reality of applying or simplifying or being able to apply this complexity into a real world. So basically, we go from this complexity that is related with many different types of data, many different types of models, that in many cases the final user is not specialist, is not a person, is a person working, for example, for a municipality, and they don't have the capability to read, for example, a numerical weather prediction model and make the let's say the cooking of the things that are happening right now. So we need to focus on these three aspects. We need to provide them something simple to read that help us to anticipate the problems. We need to provide them something that is close to them, the city with the critical elements. They know the critical elements. So these maps is very important that reflect their actual information about the city that they know. And the third thing is that it should be linked to the auto protection plan. That's very important, because it's what they are building for the city. They build this auto protection plan and they are able to activate it. So we are more in the part of adapting this complexity to the requirements of the city, which are this capability of anticipate problems, to know that I need to work on the critical points, and also that I need to manage the situation through these auto protection plans. And that's it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Rafael. It's striking to me how your work reveals the human side, and you mentioned local approach towards the complexity of high-tech systems and the intersection of science and human need and emergency response. This was very, very interesting. Thank you. Juraj has now finally joined us, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, Juraj. Moving now from Rafael's presentation, resilience also depends on working with nature, not against it. So our last speaker, Juraj, is going to focus on how natural systems and engineered ones can align together. Juraj, over to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Tessa, and thank you very much for having me. I will share quickly my screen. All right. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Perfect. Thank you very much. So I think my presentation will be the most boring because I don't have such a nice and fancy slides as you had. I only have one slide and I would like to speak through the points. So my presentation is focused on the importance of infrastructure and mainly nature-based solutions and what kind of impact we can create if we use nature wisely, right? Because we can use nature-based solutions to effectively mitigate floods. I'm working for a Global Infrastructure Basel Foundation, which is a Swiss NGO. We're focused on the topic of sustainable, resilient, and regenerative infrastructure, which is a very important topic because over 90% of SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, depend on infrastructure in some form. Over 88% of all climate adaptation costs depend on infrastructure. And we know there's a huge infrastructure investment gap by 2040, which is over $18 trillion US, which is huge. So it very much depends what kind of infrastructure we implement today, because it will stay here for the next 30, 50, and 100 years, right? So it will create a huge impact. We at GIB, we have three different pathways how we work to create an impact. We have the first pathway, which is about standardization and benchmarking. We have a tool which is called the Fast Infra Label, and that tool is helping investors and project developers to invest in infrastructure which is sustainable and resilient. Then we have a second pathway, which is about working with young people. So with young people and for young people. So we're designing infrastructure in cities with youth. And then the third pillar I am in charge of is called infrastructure and nature, which is obviously about nature-based solutions and how natural systems could be integrated in infrastructure. So in some cases, infrastructure can be fully replaced by MBS or complemented in most of the cases. And in order to make nature-based solutions, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the term, but I guess most of you, I'm speaking about wetlands, forests, floodplains, right? Peatlands, natural assets that can mitigate floods. And we all know probably that we're very far from mainstreaming nature-based solutions. There are many examples, of course, but we are not there yet. And there are different constraints why this is happening. I think the one which is very obvious is that nature-based solutions are very small scale. So that's very difficult for investors, right, to invest in this kind of solutions. The second reason is that the performance is not very much predictable because we're speaking about living solutions. So investors and project developers, they like things that you can measure very precisely, and nature-based solutions are slightly different animal. And third reason is that many engineering companies and contractors, they don't have a training to implement and maintain NBS assets. But what we say at GIB, what from our perspective is the main reason, is actually something that happens a little bit earlier, and that is the lack of early project origination work and funding for nature-based solutions. So unlike conventional solutions, nature-based solutions, they just don't appear in an investment pipeline, right? You need to make some effort. You need to, they need active champions who can identify these opportunities, who can align these ideas with stakeholders, and they can come up with some options for nature-based solutions. And that's a work that is very much missing on the market, and there are not many organizations doing it. So without this project origination bridge, many ideas will never emerge. And I have to say that at GIB, we are very enthusiastic and very active in this early stage phase where nature-based solutions could be considered as an option, right? This early stage is where you actually you are defining the project, and it's very critical phase where you either go for conventional solution or for nature-based solutions. So I will give you two examples of our work. I think that's kind of interesting to share. So we are working in a number of locations, but I guess one good example is from Greece. We worked in the Thessaly region in Greece in 2022, 2023. The region is very much hit by different storms every 2 to 3 years. And the latest storm was Daniel Medicane in 2023, so 2 years ago. I think it was in September. And this storm flooded majority of the region. It cost 5 billion in economic losses, and 600 million out of those 5 billion were losses in infrastructure, right? So losses in roads, bridges, and dams. So what we can say from that experience is that the local infrastructure, which is gray, was insufficient. It couldn't stop the floods, right? And we took another approach. We decided to conduct a pre-feasibility study using our methodology to explore whether there would be a room for nature-based solution, if whether that would be even feasible. So we have engaged different stakeholders, mainly 10 municipalities that were very affected by the flooding. We have engaged with the regional governor, a few ministries, Ministry of Infrastructure, Ministry of Environment. We have even engaged with a potential investor who was, in this case, the European Investment Bank. We engaged the loan officers from Athens who were part of the process. And we have came up with different nature-based solutions options. So we have identified specific parts in the basin and specific types of nature-based solutions, mainly wetlands, floodplains, retention ponds, urban greening strategies, and improved farming. And we have confirmed the viability from the technical standpoint, also from the political standpoint, and also conducted a modeling, hydrological modeling, and we proved that if these actions would have been implemented, they would lead to 28% reduction in peak discharge, which is a significant KPI. And also, we would delay the floods by around 1 hour. So instead of 12, it would be 13 hours. So these are two important indicators to show the impact of these measures on floods. The second example I want to share is from Maspalomas River Basin in Gran Canaria in Spain. The problem is that there's existing stormwater system that doesn't really work well. And we have lots of hotels and tourism infrastructure in that part of the island. So they keep flooded like a lot of the times. In addition to that, there is a protected wetland that actually attracts people to come to that region. So what happens is when you have a flooding, this additional water which is polluted goes into the wetland, which actually impacts the health of the wetland. So we have conducted a pre-feasibility study there as well. We spoke to the hotel operators, the municipalities, and we have came up with a solution which is sustainable urban drainage system in a form of a constructed wetland that can actually solve that problem. So these are two examples I wanted to share with you and to highlight is kind of early involvement in the design and planning of infrastructure. And whenever possible, we should consider nature-based solutions as the first possibility, because that's how you make infrastructure really truly sustainable, right? And carbon neutral. So thank you very much, and I'm very happy to receive any questions.
Thank you, Juraj. It's interesting how your approach reframes infrastructure as part of a living system, right? Showing that technology and ecology don't have to be in competition with one another, but they can indeed complement each other through smart investment and planning. Thank you. We have just heard now from our speakers about the human, technological, and natural dimensions of flood resilience and climate adaptation in general. I want to dive now a little bit deeper into how all of these connect between social design, technology, and preparedness. Amalie, technology plays a growing role in how communities, quote unquote, see risk. I wanted to ask you, what are the most effective ways that you have seen communities engage when digital tools help them visualize flood impacts? Could you elaborate a little bit on that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in general, I would say we've experienced that our tool is a very good conversation starter. So it might not even be so much about what's in the app, more so than it has like some simple visualizations. And it can be useful both for those who have experienced floods and those who are yet to experience it, so to say. Yeah, we've experienced that those who already have tried having the water come really close or even inside their homes, they're very eager to share their experiences. And this app has sort of been a way for them to do that, because it's like they've seen this before, they know the risk. The fact that we put in sort of earlier storm events is a very real way for them to connect with it. And for those who haven't experienced floods, it's a way to sort of see it as an eye opener, especially if it's in an area that they already know. We've quite clearly seen the difference between showing this app in the local area, so where we've done the recordings, versus in other areas, to other conferences. When it's local, it's very easy for people to really engage with it and also to be critical. And so it's a great tool for dialogue, I would say.
Great, thank you. Rafael, a question to you. Timing and clarity can make or break community response. According to you, how can early warning systems adapt to local reality so they truly reach vulnerable groups?
Yeah, our experience is that you have to really work on the setup of this system for example, for a municipality. It's not just a matter of going there and pushing a button and having all these, let's say, fancy maps running into the system. You have to work together with them uh, to put the local information. This is crucial because at the end they have to feel that their problem is in the system, and their problem is related not only with related to these critical points, which are essential. Second part is these auto protection plans, because they are building this auto protection. So for them, it's important that the tool is not only telling them where is going to happen something, but how to deal with this problem. And the third part is, of course, they have these people that can be affected, and it's part of the community. So they need tools. For example, more and more they are asking to involve into the platform information about these people, and that they can automatically inform the people that can be affected. So the platform is containing all the needs that they have in a special location. And this process of setting up the tool is more and more important, because it's the key element to make it useful for them. So at the end, you have to have all these pieces. And the last piece that is, let's say, more or less complex, because it's a kind of, let's say, disseminated people that is there, and you need ways to inform these people. And the ways to do that is not that they are going to connect to the platform, because these are not people dealing each day with civil protection, let's say. So you have to build some ways to communicate in a simple way to these people and tell them that, for example, if there is a flooding, they have to go to the upper level of the house, let's say.
I agree. Communication channels are crucial when it comes to this. Christian, continuing on this link, how can technology be made more participatory in the design and testing phases when it comes, for example, demo houses, so that communities can contribute more to helping shape the tools meant to actually protect them? How can we bring this down to the more local level?
Yeah, well, for us, it's been a matter of having this living lab with the demo houses in a local area. So to invite people in to make them realize what the challenges are that we are working with, but also the solutions that are maybe the most obvious to work with. But I should say immediately that for us, this is a research project. We don't have any answers yet. So, of course, there might also be some sad stories among this. But for us, it's also a way to be open to share all of the results, good or bad, with everyone, both local citizens, but also the politicians and municipal workers.
Thank you, Christian. I want to have a look now at scaling up resilience. Juraj, I wanted to ask you this question, please. What is the most exciting innovation that you have seen or that you yourself have developed in financing nature-based solutions in the work that you are doing? Can you elaborate on that, please? Thank you.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that financing nature is difficult, right? But there are actually very interesting innovations, and one is an innovation in the sense that works very well in infrastructure, but it hasn't been deployed heavily in nature-based solutions. And I think in relation to flooding, actually it can be. So I'm speaking about PPPs, public-private partnerships, where you have a private entity typically delivering the asset, the natural asset, right? Providing money upfront, giving expertise, right? Where the public sector pays on annual basis fee for the protection, right, of civilians. And the local communities, they actually receive the resilience. And at the end of 20, 30, 50 years, this asset, it works in the same way in infrastructure, will be transferred to the public sector, right? And it will become a public good. So it's good for investors because they can actually they get return on investment on annual basis. The local communities are protected, and the public sector at the end of that will have nature-based solutions assets. And it works very well for flooding. I'm saying that because river flooding lead to lots of economic damages every 2, 3, 5 years, right? So you can use these costs as a municipality or as a region, and you can invest them upfront, right? You don't need to wait and then deal with the damage, but you can use this cost. So in the case of Greece, I was speaking that the damage was around 5 billion. Why not to take this 5 billion and invest them upfront in nature-based solutions, right? To protect your people. So using the avoided damages actually in this case. So that's an innovation that we are exploring, and it has been used couple of times, but I think it has much greater potential.
Thank you, Juraj. I want to delve a little bit deeper into your brain for a moment to jump off of that. How can regional governments better integrate nature-based solutions into infrastructure planning? I want to explore a little bit on the policy side of things. How can we make this more active and more a reality?
That's a great question. I think it depends on municipalities. So we are involved in one very interesting Horizon project called Pathways to Resilience, where we engage over 100 regions from the EU. And what we see is that some regions or some cities are very advanced, like Barcelona or Amsterdam, right, on nature-based solutions. So they have dedicated people, they're actually experts in this field. But most of the medium and small size municipalities, they don't even know what nature-based solutions are. So I would say it's really a knowledge, first of all, basic knowledge about nature-based solutions. And then I think it would be good to have a local partner, like a local NGO, that can actually help the municipalities to consider nature-based solutions as something that can be complemented by great infrastructure, maybe in the first place, in the beginning, and that can lead to much bigger uptake in the future. So I think it's the local partner that has expertise and the interest of the municipalities in this topic.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. Juraj, you experiment with financing. Christian, you experiment with design. Christian, a question to you. How can insights from demo housing or AR models help convince investors and policymakers to fund climate resilience to flooding? with regards to the work that you are doing? Jumping off on the policy
good
side of things
question.
that I also asked Juraj. Over to you.
Yeah, no, but that's a very good question. In Denmark, one of the biggest trouble or challenges for us is actually to engage with both citizens and politicians, especially because I think there is a lack of knowledge, but also to some degree interest. So for us, it's about making them more aware, making it more some more close examples for them, and to build the demo houses and make augmented reality solutions like in Regions for Climate and in Resist makes it more. I think it gives them more concrete examples of the challenges and the adaptation solutions that we would like them to consider. So for us, it's about making them more aware and making these examples that interacts with them, coming as close as we can to a real climate effect, a climate challenge. Yeah.
Thank you. Stepping back to the systems perspective. Rafael, what is still preventing the effective adoption of early warning systems at the municipal level, and how can we improve it, in your opinion?
Yeah. I think that more and more the municipal level is taking the responsibility for these kind of things. Maybe in the last 2 years, for example, we have several examples in Spain where, and in other countries of Europe where the civil protection is issuing this kind of VES alert or warnings to all the population. Where you are having your mobile information about what is a kind of warning situation. And more and more the municipalities is taking the responsibility to have these kind of systems that take care of what is going to be the impact. Our experience is that other companies, as we are trying to do, are building these kind of solutions, and at the end, the only way that they have a kind of responsibility and they can, let's say, materialize these responsibilities to having tools to deal with the problems. Because otherwise you want to take the responsibility, but there are no tools to help you to do that. So I think that part of the key thing of this solution is that we have the tools to do that, because at the end, civil protection at the regional scale are taking care of the big areas, but not taking care of the details of the municipality. And if the municipality has the tools and it wants to have the responsibility, they can really go into the details of protecting the people in a certain area. I think that tools are a key question, and also the municipalities wanting to have the responsibility to deal with the problem in a local approach.
Thank you, Rafael. Connecting to this, I have a question for Amalie. From the work that you've been doing, what does social resilience look like in action? How can we build more of it in our communities? We've heard a lot from the different other speakers today, but the crux of it is bringing this to community level. So I want to hear more from you on what you see more concretely from the social resilience side of things. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So in general, social resilience can be a variety of things, and it could be expressed in many ways. It can be everything from a community being quite prepared for a crisis situation, but it could also be to see a large engagement during participatory planning processes or a high level of awareness. I have this one example I quite often mention. It's not from our own case area, but from a different part of Denmark, like a small community that lives in a very flood-prone area, and they know that when the water comes, they're not going to be protected by anyone because there's a larger city further inland that the authorities have to take care of first. So they all have this phone list or like phone number list on their fridges in the kitchen. And when they get like an early warning on their phones because they've signed up for this system, they know who to call around town, know who to look out for. The old lady down the road, has she fallen today, or do we know if the neighbor has any food? Just like, it's a very low effort, but it's also a way to make sure that everyone is okay. And I think that shows a high level of social resilience. It's someone who's taking responsibility of both themselves, but also their community. Yeah.
Small actions make great positive impacts, right? I agree. I'm having a quick look at our press briefing chat here to see if there's anybody who has questions for us from the participants. I see that there is Jacob Walter from AI Media. His question is, the EU has spent billions on climate adaptation communication, yet public awareness and public preparedness for flooding remains low. Oh gosh, hold on, wait. The message has just removed itself. Sorry, one moment. Yeah, hold on. Has sustainability storytelling failed to drive real behavioral change? So I'm going to repeat that one more time because my chat froze. The EU has invested billions in climate adaptation communication, yet public awareness and local preparedness for flooding remain low. Has sustainability storytelling failed to drive real behavioral change? Any of you have any thoughts on this? Amalie, please go ahead.
Yeah, I guess there are several aspects that play into this. One of them is, I guess, our way of living in general being very disconnected from nature. So this whole thing about having to deal with something weather or climate related in our day-to-day lives might seem quite far away from the way we live today. And I guess there's also been maybe a more like we've gotten used to the fact that organizations, authorities, and so on will sort of deal with it on our behalf. So I guess that's one aspect of it. And I think there's been, of course, and as there should be for many years, a big focus on sustainability and lowering our carbon footprint. But when do we change that narrative to also say, well, we didn't actually do it in time, so there will be consequences. We're already seeing those consequences. How do we create those two narratives at the same time? I think is very difficult to find the right balance.
I agree. Another question from the public. Flood resilient homes often come with high upfront costs. What's your response to critics who say these solutions are out of reach for low-income communities who need them the most? I think that question is for you, Christian. Over to you.
Yeah, I sense that as well. It's not our primary objective to build as cost effective as possible, but of course we look into the costs as well. And I can say immediately that the materials that we use, because we want to lower the carbon footprint, also actually entails lower cost as well. Some of the materials, this is according, for example, to transportation. We want to also not use materials coming from the other side of the planet, but use materials as close as possible to the location where the houses has been built. So of course that also entails lower costs. Of course, I totally agree with you that we should not, of course, develop incredible expensive constructions. But it has not been in the main purpose of our project, but we do see that this thing about building lowering the carbon footprint sometimes also entails lower costs.
Indeed. Another question from the participants is, early warning systems often look good on paper, but fail in real crises due to coordination breakdowns. How are you ensuring, well, this is a question for you, Rafael. How are you ensuring that the Argo system doesn't become another, quote unquote, from the question, data-rich response poor tool? Over to you.
I agree. There are many, I mean, currently it's very easy to have nice systems that show a lot of data because we are really data rich. We have information, meteorological information. We have weather radar. We have sensors. So it's easy to be caught in the idea that It's a matter of showing a lot of data, and that is not going to solve the problems. So we tend to explain to our the people that is using our systems that it's like turn this upside down. It's not about showing the data, but the first thing is to adapt the system to your needs, and to make the system very useful to what you have to do. That is to be proactive and to manage the situation. So at the end, you can go into the system and you can look at the data, but at the end, the important thing, that the first thing that is trying to show our let's say display, is that you have certain areas that can be affected, and you have to take actions related to these areas. And of course, you can look at the data. And
Yeah.
and at the end, this process is that working a lot with different users, and to learn from them, because at the end they are using your interface, and they can tell you it's not useful because it's not well organized, and this interaction with them is very important to make sure that it's not about rich data response poor. Is at the end is the contrary, is response okay, and of course you have the rich data.
Indeed. There is a follow-up question for you, Rafael. Many vulnerable residents in flood-prone areas or climate catastrophic-prone areas don't use smartphones or digital platforms. How can you guarantee that early warnings actually reach those who are the most at risk? So those who do not have a lot of technological access, for example.
Yeah. Well, these people is not. I mean, the those people that is taking care of the civil protection, they are going to use our platform. But the rest of the population they are not using our platform. They are receiving some kind of message from the municipality.
Yeah.
So our experience is that the municipality is trying to. They have different levels of reaching the people. I mean, there is let's say the general people that they are used to look at the news, the TV, they have mobile, so they can be reached easily by this kind of let's say these ways of reaching the people. But of course, you have elderly people and other kind of groups that they are not really close to this kind of ways of contacting the people. So they have to build specific plans for these people, and somehow we try to help them technologically how to do that, but in many cases that they have to build a plan. We are not really close to this last step of the warning, let's say. But my feeling is that they have to, or my experience is that they try to find specifically this, for example, elderly people, and they try to visit these people in advance if something is going to happen, and to make sure that, for example, they have a specific way of warning them, or to visit them, or something like that. But this is really a very complex, let's say, problem.
Agreed, but you answered it very concretely. Thank you very much, Rafael. I'm going to finish with a concluding question for all of you. Drawing from your different perspectives, how can we bridge the gap between research, community participation, technology, and investment? Christian, your demo houses show how research can become practical for builders and planners. Amalie, your work with Regions for Climate highlights how communities can co-design solutions. Rafael, your Argos early warning system connects technology and trust on the ground. And Juraj, you focus on scaling local innovations into broader financial and infrastructure planning. Together, how can all of these elements combine to make resilience both tangible and inclusive on the ground? Perhaps, Juraj, you can start, because we haven't heard from you in a little moment. Over to you first.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I think, yeah, all of these things are important. So the example I shared with you, it was partly research, right? Partly stakeholder engagement, partly financing and working with investors. So I think the research is here to provide some evidence that what we are doing makes sense and to show potential impact. And then we need to always, whatever we do, engage potential investors if we want to make it investable, because they tell us what kind of criteria they are using then ultimately to finance something, right? What we don't want to do is to only do research projects that will lead nowhere, right? I mean, there's room for those projects as well, but we want to ultimately create change on the ground. So we actually like to connect these dots in early pre-feasibility stages to feasibility, to ramp up it to the investment side. So we engage all of those parts in the best possible way, because that's the only recipe that you can actually succeed and implement finally solutions that you want to implement.
Fantastic. Amalie, Rafael, Christian, any last concluding remarks related to the question that I just asked? Over to you. Anyone?
Just a comment. I think that we all have the experience that EU-funded projects as Horizon, in many cases, well, the previous, let's say, programs, in many cases, we have the feeling that Europe is doing a big effort in supporting this kind of projects, and just a small percentage is going into practical tools into the society. Okay, so I think that more and more Europe is looking for this kind of, is asking this kind of projects, or forcing this kind of projects to be really producing something that is useful. And I think this is the correct approach, at least from we are a very small company located in Barcelona, and more we are seeing these projects as an opportunity to transfer something from the research to the real world. And the idea that Europe is pushing this kind of attitude is good, because at the end we all are paying for that, because as a community we are part of Europe, and this money is good that is going to the society. So I think we are more and more being forced to do this kind of or having this kind of attitude inside these funded projects.
Any other concluding remarks from Christian or Amalie?
Well, I agree with you, Rafael. Very good comment. And also, this goes very well in hand with also the mentality of VIA University College, which I represent in the Resist project. We are a university for applied science. For us, it's very important to combine the research with real life problems and try to test it in real life to get the applied science developed. And I think this goes very well in hand with what you say, Rafael. This is actually what we want to do in these projects, and this is what we are doing in Resist and also in Regions for Climate. So I think it's very important to have this kind of research and this kind of projects that can entail solutions and innovations like this.
Yeah, and just I might repeat what have already been said, because I agree a lot. I think for me the most important point to this question is to keep your stakeholders close. Like you guys said, like bring them in from the beginning, make sure your results are relevant for them. You can develop the most interesting and important thing, but if it's at the wrong time, then it doesn't matter. Like really make sure you have your local governments and so on brought in early on in these development processes.
Thank you all. And thank you all for a very, very interesting discussion. We have indeed connected technology, design, nature, social inclusion into a common thread within an hour. Fantastic. Before we close, I would like to remind everyone who has been participating that there is an upcoming Resist Projects media briefing in November. I encourage everybody to register and to continue learning more about this important topic. A very special thank you again to all of our speakers. This was a wonderful, wonderful, invigorating discussion. To the participants, we hope today's briefing has provided you with an engaging and thought-provoking discussion, and that it inspires you, especially the journalists, to write about this topic and to help inform and empower the public, because this is what it's all about. Because behind every flood statistic is a human story. And by telling those stories, we can help bridge the gap between innovation and action, and indeed between policy and people. Thank you for your attention. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank you.